We're going to go launch it first, aren't we?
Yeah.
We'll be there before you know it. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah! Well, we lost our mics. We'll see what happens.
Is that okay? Do we stay the audio? That's a heck of a way to start.
Welcome to the Brand Sweat and Tears podcast. I'm your host, Dave Oldham, and today, this so far is definitely going to be the coolest recording that we've done because those of you who are watching the video can see that we are currently in a Tesla. The model, this is a Plaid,
Yep.
right?
Model S.
Model S. And my guest is Alex Lawrence, who is the founder and owner of EV Auto. He is an OG founder and entrepreneur, someone I've looked up to and admired for a long time. And he's done tech companies in the past. He is also a professor of mayhem at Weber State University, right?
I guess. I heard that.
And actually got some publicity around your embracing AI and was on the news. So we might talk a little bit about that. Yeah. But got this crazy hair and decided to start a auto dealership focused exclusively on electric vehicles, but I have to add, not a specific brand. You do them all, right? So you can get anybody, any electric vehicle that they want. Some are brand new, some are used, right?
Not brand new, because we're not able to sell.
Okay, because you have to be like an authorized reseller or something.
Yeah, but I mean, I've got a car right now that's got 700 miles.
Okay.
So,
all right. So
close.
We're recording in this Plaid Tesla, and we just launched it from his lot, and I almost blacked out. I was getting some serious cheese. That was really fun.
Fastest production car ever made.
Yep. And what's the 0 to 60?
1.9 seconds.
1.9 seconds. We just basically almost did that.
Yep,
right?
pretty close.
So this will be super fun, but we've been talking about doing this for a little while. Had to play around with some different equipment
this setup
to try to get this set up. So we've got 2 iPhones going. We've got 4 microphones going. And I am joined also by my partner in crime, Matt Graham, who is manning the soundboard in the back seat. And so, you might see him in these video clips too. So I wanted to acknowledge that he's creeping in the back seat right there. Okay, so yeah, I want you to kind of tell us how and why you got into entrepreneurship. How did you become an entrepreneur?
Growing up, my friends mostly all wanted to be a something, an athlete, a doctor, an accountant, whatever, airline pilot, something.
Supermodel.
Yeah.
That was mine.
Yeah, okay.
I thought for sure I had it.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then one day my mom said I had a face for radio and it dashed all my dreams.
Yeah, here you are.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just never connected with anything. I never wanted to be a something. And so what I've come to realize is I kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to create and do different things, and I just didn't know. And we moved a lot of places growing up. I lived in a few places in California, and then a short stint in New Mexico, and then a few places in Colorado, and then moved here, which is where my parents were from. So it was not completely unfamiliar, but I've lived here ever since. But my point with that is every couple years or less, in some cases, I was the new kid. And so as a new kid, especially in some places where, a little rougher, or maybe I was a minority or something like that, a little bit of extra effort. And so you've got to kind of learn to sell yourself. You've got to learn to talk to new people. You've got to learn to be in kind of new situations. And so the combination of those things, I think, led to my first real entrepreneurial venture, which I just realized the other day when I was talking to someone. It was a car detailing business. So it was a car business.
Nice.
And
full circle.
Yeah, right? And unintentionally, I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner. But, and I'd done kid with the lemonade stand kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Always. But yeah, that's kind of where it started, I think.
So car detailing, and then how long did you do that, and then where did you go from there?
Yeah, so it was Perfection on Wheels is what it was called.
Nice.
And for the old school folks, I used Microsoft Paint, I believe, to make a flyer.
Nice.
That I printed out, and I went to the eastern bench of Bountiful, which was where the rich people lived, and I just went door to door.
So you had moved to Utah by that time?
Yeah, I moved here when I was about 15.
Okay.
And so when I was 16, that's when I started Perfection on Wheels. And just would go door to door, just saying, hey, can I detail your car? I'll come pick it up. I'll detail it. I'll bring it back.
Have any of your Perfection on Wheels clients come to buy an electric vehicle from you?
Idea.
You
No
can't
clue.
remember.
I mean, that was 35 years ago. So,
Right.
I mean, and I did that till...
But some old lady didn't come and like, I
No.
remember you,
She-
cute little boy doing my...
That would be cool, actually. I wonder if I'd have to think about the doors I knocked, because the neighborhood's not too far away from
There you
the
go.
dealership.
Go put some EV auto flyers on their
Door to door,
doors.
can I sell you an EV?
Yeah.
And so I did that for 2 years until I went to college, and had one or two of my friends do some work for me, and made good money for that age. But I didn't have to go work kind of a traditional job. I did a little bit. I worked when I was 14, I walked down to the grocery store from where we first lived and got a job as a bagger. And my parents nobody asked me. I came back and I'm like, I got a job. And they're like, what?
Wow.
And
just took the initiative.
yeah, I just walked
All right,
down there and got a job.
Nice.
And so yeah.
Child labor laws were a little looser back then.
Well, no, they only let me work like I can only work certain hours. They were in place, and I worked like 20 hours a week or something like that in school. But yeah, I've always been blessed with a good work ethic, and
Nice.
and I had a good example. My dad and mom, hard workers.
Yeah. So what did he do?
My dad had a really interesting career. I'd like to say he was ahead of his time. He did leadership training way before Covey and all that stuff made it popular.
Okay.
And he only did it in one-on-one settings.
Wow.
He didn't do so. Kind
He
of
was like an executive coach before it became a thing.
Yes.
Okay.
But he had a science background. His degree was in psychology, and so he mentored people.
Kind of a business
governors.
therapist.
Yeah, the jazz, all these different clients that he had, and he worked his way towards that and tried different things in the space, but was a really just incredibly high IQ, really intelligent guy. It was fun people enjoyed talking to him.
Cool. But you kind of got your work ethic from him. Do you think you got like your ambition, your entrepreneur like genes or juice from him?
I mean, I'm sure from
your mom?
Yeah,
like what did your mom do?
both of my parents. My mom was she worked when I was younger, and then and worked off and on when we moved around and lived at different places and stuff. And then when we moved here, I think that's kind of when she stopped work. My dad's business finally kind of got successful, whatever. And so, but yeah, I mean, they're definitely, my dad was definitely, he had worked for he was an early employee actually at Hewlett-Packard doing their, like in HR stuff, and had some really cool jobs early in his career. But yeah, I'd say that there's some entrepreneurial genes there, and my dad and mom are both hard workers, and I do feel like some of that is genetic. I like hard work. I enjoy it. It's not something that I ever really have to push myself to do, and I'm super grateful for that. I mean, it's really been a net benefit. There's some downsides to it, but yeah.
That's cool. So Perfection on Wheels.
Yep.
And then what?
Went to the University of Utah. My dad, my uncle, then later my brother all graduated from there. Didn't enjoy it. C+ student. Don't remember any of my professors. Nothing.
School wasn't your jam.
It became my jam later.
Okay. Now
So,
you're a teacher.
Well, I have a PhD and a master's degree, both.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew that. It doesn't matter. But I mean,
I have seen the PhD next to the name. Yeah.
plenty of college. But there's a story to it. But
Okay.
I actually started. You remember you had to buy a graphing calculator, those 180?
Oh yeah, HP.
Uh-huh. I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I'll never use one of these again. And I was right. And so I started renting them.
Okay.
So I had Calc Rent. And I rented calculators on a few different campuses, and was just always trying to hustle, and stuff, and finished there. And then, I can tell you, I got my opportunity at my first startup.
What was your degree in?
Business management.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So you come out of college.
Yep.
Didn't quite become a unicorn with calc rent, but paid the bills,
Yeah.
maybe paid for some dates.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, you got it. Was living in my parents' basement, all that kind of stuff.
And then first startup.
Yeah, so I was dating a girl down in Utah County, and I went down there to see her, and we went to this place called Zucca Juice.
Oh yeah, I remember Zucca Juice.
Which was acquired by
way
Jamba
before
Juice.
Jamba.
Yeah, well, Jamba bought us.
Okay.
And so that's, I just say Jamba, and oh yeah, okay, I know what that is.
Okay.
And there was a line out the door, and smoothies back then were not a thing. They weren't on restaurant menus. There weren't all these different blenders you could buy. And They just weren't a thing. And so it felt like this new, exciting category, and that's why it was so popular.
And you had to go there to get a smoothie.
Yeah. Yep. People weren't doing it at their homes.
Yeah.
And so I went back again, I think the next day, and then the day after, and it was just always a line, and I just thought, man, this is going to be big.
Yeah.
And so I went back home and put together a plan and went to my friend's dad, who was the richest guy I knew at the time, and basically said, hey, we should open up a bunch of these as franchises, and you can pay for them and I'll run them. And he said, well, let's go look at them. We went down, looked at them, and it was pretty obvious that, the cash register was ringing.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, this is interesting. So we met with them, presented my plan. It would have been to own all of northern Utah. So I think from Salt Lake to Logan. And
had you approached them about the possibility of doing a franchise?
Yeah,
before that point?
Same stuff that I was telling you about growing up. I just reached out to the owner and just said, hey, I want to own a franchise.
Okay.
And he's like, okay, put together a proposal. I'd never obviously owned a franchise or done anything like that. And so scheduled the meeting, went back and met with them, and they were impressed. They liked the proposal, but it was a couple weeks or so, I think, went by. And my memory's not super great on stuff, but they basically called back and said, we loved your proposal. I like to say they liked me, they loved him, because they could see his financials.
Yeah.
And but they said, we're not going to franchise Utah. We're going to keep it as corporate stores.
Oh, okay.
And I was crushed. I was crushed. I thought, this is my ticket. It's what I've been wanting to do. And ultimately, I ended up being right in the sense that I got to be on the inside, and I'll tell that in a minute. But those stores that we were going to own and operate did wildly well. It would have been a very,
all their corporate stores crushed it. Yeah,
crushed it.
Okay.
Just knocked it out of the park. And so I was really bummed. And a small period of time went by, and the founder called me back and said, "Hey, what are you doing?"
I'm wallowing in freakish misery, rocking back and forth.
Yes, you ruined my life. I'm not doing anything.
I'm depressed.
Yes. And so he's like, "Come work for me." And so I did, and I did everything you can imagine. I just said yes to everything and just worked my guts out, and got to be a part of it.
What was your role? Just like Swiss Army knife? Like whatever he needed you to do?
Sure. For a while, honestly, I would do anything. I didn't care if it was wash his car, pick up dry cleaning, but I was also, what I got really good at was picking locations for corporate stores and franchise stores, and then negotiating leases and stuff, which I had zero experience. That's what I was kind of became in charge of, if you will. And I'd travel the country, and I'd meet with franchisees, and I'd meet with real estate agents, and we'd go and search for locations, and I learned some pretty creative things during that process. And so
I'm curious about that, because you said you got really good at it, but you had no previous experience. Like, how did you get good at that?
Yeah, so I asked lots of questions from commercial real estate agents that represented people like Starbucks, and what do they look for? How do they do it? They've always got the best locations. And so I've always been a curious person and asked lots of questions. And so they would just tell me, oh, they do this, they do that. And so we started developing a kind of a model. But some of it's also not all science, some of it's art. And, the transition of the story is that a franchisee in Idaho had owned the territory for quite a while and couldn't find a location. And so he's called me and said, hey, will you go up and spend some time in Idaho and just help look for me? I said, of course.
Wow.
So I drove up there, and what most people do And this story replicated itself with EV Auto later, but they just go drive around and look for rent signs.
Yeah.
But
The
everybody
obvious
can do
stuff.
that.
Yeah.
Everybody can do
Yeah.
that. Anybody can do that.
Yeah.
And so what I did is I said, I found what's the busiest intersection, what's the best, and typically there was like a Starbucks there.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, it's super hard to find it. And then I just went around and knocked on doors asking people if they wanted to move out.
Wow.
Or do you want to be done, or do you want to sell your lease, or you want to, whatever. And most everybody was like, no, it's the best location in the whole city. Why would I want to leave?
Yeah.
And then came across I believe it was a Sherwin-Williams paint store, but it was a paint store. And I can't remember if they were just done or they were already planning to move, but they said, yeah, actually. And it ended up being literally on the corner of the busiest intersection in Pocatello.
Wow.
And everybody, how in the world did you get that location? Because, so anyway, that theme of doing things, you can have all the data, you can do all the research, you can ask all the questions. But at the end of the day, I went and knocked on doors and walked into businesses as a complete stranger with, 98% of them telling me to take a hike.
Was that easy for you? Going back to the kid just walking into the shopping center and like asking for a job, or was that hard? I mean, for some people that might be the scariest thing ever, or like a really challenging thing for them to just like, okay, I'm just going to literally go knock doors or walk into offices.
Yeah. So for me, it's very easy.
Okay.
And was very easy. Felt like a kind of a fun competitive game too. And so, but there's times, I'm in my like mid 20s by then. There's some times in my previous years where stuff like that was, I tell a story to my students. I get the opportunity to speak in front of pretty big groups on occasion. I was just back east and I spoke in front of, hundreds of really intimidating financial people.
Yeah.
And totally super comfortable. I'm not bragging or nothing. I'm just saying it.
That kind of scenario doesn't worry you. Yeah.
It doesn't. It was fun.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was a sophomore, when I first moved here to Utah, I took a business marketing class. It was one of the few classes that came really easy for me and I really liked. And I had an easy A, and it was mostly juniors and seniors. And I had just moved there, and so I didn't have a lot of people that I knew. And the big assignment at the end of the semester was to do a presentation in front of the class. And I was so afraid to do it, I didn't do it.
Wow.
I got an F, and my grade went from an A to a C.
Oh,
because I was so afraid to get in front of the class. Okay. So it's definitely something that I've that environment.
So between there and where you became super comfortable with it, where was the turning point? Do you know, like, what was the breakthrough moment?
Well, there's two things. One, the setting. With business stuff and sales stuff, that always came pretty easy to me.
Okay.
So, but getting in front of a group of strangers and speaking about something like that was just good old-fashioned making myself do it until I got comfortable with it. But I also tell my students there's two other things that really make it go well. One is practice, and two is expertise. If you really know a lot about the subject and you practice it a lot, your comfort level goes way up and your anxiety goes way down.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason why, the stuff I talk about now fits that criteria generally. And so
do the homework, be prepared.
Yeah.
And then, practice. How do you practice being in front of a huge group?
Yeah. I remember, so I later in my career, I decided to give school another try because like I said, I'm curious. And I applied to all the Utah schools and got declined from all of them, and Weber State barely let me in to their MBA program. And it was only because it was brand new. It was their second year of offering an MBA. They wouldn't let me in today based on my grades and my test scores and stuff. And so that it's part of why I love Weber State so much. They gave me a chance, and I learned a lot. I graduated, perfect, near the top of my class, whatever. I was the student speaker at graduation.
Nice.
And so for the whole business school or whatever. And I went the day before to an empty auditorium and just did my speech like a million times.
Wow.
And so, that was a
pictured everyone there.
Yep. And stood
in their underwear.
Right.
Wasn't that the...
And I was scared and nervous. It's funny, when you do those things, I was scared and nervous back then to do it. But I don't know if it's true for everybody, but after about 30 seconds, you kind of settle in, and then it's if you've done your homework.
Like a jump into cold water.
And you're prepared.
Okay.
Then otherwise it could be a knee knocker the whole time if you're not prepared. But so anyway.
Okay. So you get really good at this. And I want to circle back to this one point that I've heard over and over in these kinds of discussions. It's that Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, or at least it was kind of attributed to Wayne Gretzky at some point. And that is like, you got those locations by just not being afraid to go in and ask someone. And what's the word? I mean, it's not like they're going to like harm you physically. I mean, the rejection kind of stings, but like really what's the worst that could happen? And being willing to walk in there and have those conversations, take your shot, you ended up with some pretty good wins.
Yeah, and one more example from that story that I like to share. When we were getting ready to open, so I ended up getting equity in those stores.
Nice.
So that's, that hustle, the franchisee said, hey, do you want to keep...
And the Alex Lawrence empire begins.
That's not what it is, but maybe someday. The next thing that I did that I think was pretty unique and along those same lines, we were getting ready to open, and I was driving around town, and back then, more so than now, there were a bunch of signs where you get the long pole and you like stick the individual letters on it.
Yeah.
They were all over. Like I said, not so much now. And I went around everywhere and to everybody that had one in the whole city. And I said, hey, if you'll let me do this, I'll do it for you if you want. Put up, welcome Zuka Juice opens June 14th. I'll give you and your whole office a bunch of free smoothies.
Nice.
And the vast majority said yes.
Oh, that's cool.
And so
that's thinking outside the box.
Yeah, you drove around Pocatello, and it looked like the entire town was welcoming
like you
us.
bought
Welcome Zuka Juice, opening June. I mean, literally, it was just everywhere.
Nice.
Those signs, all of them pretty much said it.
Nice.
And so, so anyway, just stuff like that, trying to be creative, trying to, do things different, trying to, not being afraid to ask.
Yeah.
The answer is no if you don't ask is something I tell my students and my kids all the time. And I saw something this morning. I had a guest speaker in my class this morning, and she started her talk with said, every great adventure starts with a yes. And I loved that. I thought that is so true.
It's a great saying.
Yep. So anyway.
I love it. Okay, so you're going around doing all sorts of stuff for Zuka. You sort of become the specialist at finding locations and negotiating the leases. How long did you stay with Zuka? And did you have ownership in like corporate Zuka or just some of these individual stores that you'd helped?
Yeah, back then I didn't know anything about how all that stuff works.
Okay.
No clue. And so
you're still chalking all this up to like, I'm learning a lot. This is great life experience. Did you have like a goal in mind, or you're kind of just going like, let's see where this goes?
Yeah, I was just like,
okay.
I literally worked 7 days a week, because I was traveling for the franchise stuff, and then I'd get home and go work at my franchises on the weekend, and then I'd get up and fly somewhere Monday morning, and it was a crazy work.
So when you say your franchises, did you buy some at some point?
I earned the equity in Idaho.
Oh, in the corporate stores?
No, in the franchises in Idaho.
Okay.
I earned equity in those.
Okay, by helping them find those. Okay.
And would go up there and work in the stores.
Okay, so when you're saying your franchises, that's the one.
I would drive to Idaho. So a typical week for me would be Monday morning, I'd fly out to San Antonio early. I'd meet with franchisees and commercial real estate people for a couple days, look at sites, pick sites, whatever. Then I'd get on a plane and go to Dallas like Wednesday night, do the same thing in Dallas on Thursday and Friday. Then I'd get home Friday night, and I'd go straight to my house and change my suitcase out and drive straight to Idaho. And then I'd get there late Friday night, and I'd work all day Saturday.
Wow.
And, then come home on Sunday and then get ready to do it again.
Wow.
And I did that
nonstop,
no breaks.
So you were single at this point.
Yeah, single and no life.
No dating.
No life at all.
Yeah.
And really unhealthy, starting a path of being really unhealthy in a lot of ways. So, but I didn't know any better. And so got to the point where I couldn't do both. And and I was doing, honestly, I made some dumb mistakes just trying to make everybody happy. Instead of just saying, no, I can't do that. No, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Yes, I can do that. So learned a really good lesson there. Ended up being involved in the Idaho stores fully. And then I'm going up there all the time, and learned some really good lessons there, and ended up selling my piece of those and having what I would say, I've said this before, what I learned at Zuka Juice has probably had a bigger impact on my business career than all three of my college degrees combined.
That was your real world MBA.
It was unbelievable what I learned. I mean, that thing went from, gosh, I don't know, was it 3 locations or something to hundreds.
Wow.
In a bona fide phenomenon
Wow.
that I got to be on the front row for. So
spread out from Idaho, I'm assuming.
Oh, dude, we went the entire West Coast.
Under this, like with the same owner partner.
No, sorry, we sold franchises all over.
Oh, okay.
So it was a franchise operation, and they were in Oregon.
I thought you were, like at some point you transitioned from like the corporate just being all in on the Idaho stuff.
I did,
right?
but before then I had done stores in Oregon,
opened all of these
Washington,
franchises.
Nevada, Arizona.
Then you kind of transfer into, now you're just in the Idaho,
Right.
and then that's when Jamba comes in?
Yeah, So
as a buyer?
I didn't sell my equity to Jamba. I sold it to my partner.
Okay.
And then Jamba came in later and bought the whole company.
So do you have any regrets? Like, did you sell too soon?
No, I mean, regret.
What prompted the sell?
Yeah, honestly, I made some dumb decisions. And so I was still trying to serve 2 masters and it didn't work. And so it was a kind of I wasn't doing a great job. And so it was like, hey, I'll take a little pile of money and go do the next thing.
Okay.
And so, I mean, regrets, sure, in the sense that, I've learned a lot over my life, about how to not replicate some of those bad decisions, for sure. But I mean, I learned so much and had such a great experience, as you can probably tell, that I don't regret it by any means.
Yeah.
As far as, actual feelings of regret, I just I made some dumb decisions, but overall it was just an incredibly net positive thing for me. And I had a small
block in your screen.
Small amount of money, and I could go to the next thing, which ended up being other franchise related stuff for about a decade.
Wow.
So both as franchisee and franchisor.
So you sell out to your partner. Do you immediately jump into another franchise, or were there?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I got to kind of really think about that for a minute, but I'm not sure if it was the next day or a few months down the road. But yeah, started some stuff you've heard of. I don't know if you remember Godfather's Pizza.
Yeah, for sure. I love
Fridays.
Godfather's, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
I ended up buying one of those out of bankruptcy.
Okay.
And then ended up getting up to about 13 of them, I believe.
Wow.
Before
sole owner?
No, I had an operating partner.
Okay.
Who, again, later in the story, ended up doing Five Guys burgers and fries.
Oh, okay.
And just made a killing, which was a key moment in time for me when I decided to leave franchising and food and go to my, what I learned I really loved was technology.
Okay.
And so, so I was the president of 5-Star Franchising. I co-founded a venture fund called Franchise Foundry, where we would invest in small restaurants and turn them into franchises.
I think I remember Franchise Foundry way back in the day. I might have seen you present at something or what time frame, what years was that?
That would have been
early 2000s?
15 or more years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
And so
or mid
like Spoon Me. We did
okay.
We invested in them and helped them franchise, or I think we did Spoon Me. Or Sub-Zero Ice Cream and some other ones where we would try to get in and help them, have some ownership, help them grow their business. And so, I was deeply involved in the franchise world on both franchisee and franchisor side for about a decade, from Zuka Juice to when I finished my last kind of franchise gig.
So what was the last one?
5-Star Franchising, which they kept growing that thing and had a really nice exit a few years ago.
And was that 5-Star Painting and 5-Star, was that it, or was that a totally separate thing?
Yeah, no, 5-Star Painting is 5-Star Franchising.
Okay.
So just like it sounds, residential.
So at some point it kind of transitioned from food into other franchise models.
Yeah, and franchising's the same for pretty much any business.
Were the profit margins the same on food as it was on painting?
Yeah, it's really, it varies because you're dealing with so many independent operators. So there's just a lot of varying levels of market size, skill, capital, that kind of a thing. So, but franchisees were profitable. They weren't the margins in smoothies, I'll tell you that. So,
smoothies, was that the best of all as far as a margin?
The food stuff?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. See, Zuka Juice was like Crumble. That's
super
what
simple
that's
model.
what I would liken it to.
Yeah.
Super blew up really fast. Everybody knew them. Everybody was getting them. Didn't grow to the behemoth but that kind of experience was what I'd liken it to.
Okay. So what prompted then, I think I'm done with franchising and I'm getting into tech?
Yeah. So I've always been an early adopter, and I know that term can be overused, but I love to try things before anybody else has, just because I'm curious. That's hardware, that's software, it's cars, and so I came to realize that there was, a lot of businesses that are building that stuff. And I think I mentioned some friends of mine, they said, hey, we want to do this burger franchise from back east, and that's where they were from. And, go check it out, see if you want to do it with us. So I flew back east with my family, went to Five Guys Burgers and Fries, came back and said, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be, you're right, this is going to be a hit. But let me introduce you to my previous operating partner. I'm going to tech. And they did just remarkably well. And I've never, ever had 1 ounce of regret. Whenever I eat at one of those places, I just get a smile that they did so well.
You're like, cool, I saw this kind of early.
Operating partner made so much money and stuff. And So
what had convinced you, like you were just like, I like this franchise model. You understood it well by that point, but there was something about innovation and technology that was just a stronger draw that you were willing to say no to the Five Guys thing and move on.
Yeah, I was like, hey, wait a minute, I found what I'm really interested in. And I was kind of tired of it. Food restaurants and franchising is a grind. Yeah. It's a grind. And I don't know, I just wanted to try something different. And when I thought about it, I was like, well, this is what I really, because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I started. And the franchise stuff was just kind of opportunistic. Okay, yeah, I understand that. Let's do it. Oh, I understand that. Let's do it. And it just kind of built. And but then once it came time where I could, kind of be more choosy and had this fork in the road, it was an easy decision for me. Yeah. And I'm grateful that that's how it went.
So what was the first foray into tech?
I think it was building websites for small businesses, I believe. And back then when the World Wide Web was coming out, no businesses had websites. Yeah. And so we built a bunch of websites for small businesses.
Who's we?
My team, I was a solo founder, so the people that I worked with.
So you started and then started hiring people.
Yeah.
Did you build the first websites yourself?
So we used a tool that was like a website builder.
Sort of early WordPress?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, that's a good description. And so, I was doing all of the above. And
how did you get your first clients? Cold calling?
Yeah, and just, people that I knew.
Okay.
They had businesses, and I'm like, you need a website, and let us build it for you.
Okay.
And so, totally same.
Started in your network, had enough people that got things rolling, started hiring people.
Yep.
Okay.
Got it. And we're building websites and doing internet marketing stuff a little tiny bit. And that did... everything I've done in my life is, I would classify it as like a double in a baseball analogy. So it was good, but I'm still here talking to you. So
we are not doing this interview in your G5 or on a remote island that you own.
Exactly. So, I think to be frank though, I think EV Auto is that opportunity to be the Grand Slam home run, same analogy.
Because you're combining this is going to be a franchise, right?
No. Well, there's a possibility, I suppose, but that's not the plan. I'm open-minded to it because...
But single location can get you to your $1 billion?
No way.
Okay.
Yeah, no, $1 billion's actually the plan in 5 years.
Definitely talk about multiple locations.
Talking about being the largest seller of used electric vehicles in the world.
Okay.
And that's been the plan from day one. Never been anything other than that. But
I like that you said world and not U.S.
Yeah, I think that
because I total world domination plan.
Well, it's just there's a high demand for EVs in Europe.
Yeah.
And so you'd be foolish not to think about. I think it's going to be a while before that makes sense.
And no leading brands there. Nobody like EV Auto that's obvious that you've seen.
No, shockingly. Okay. Even in California, where over 25% of new car sales, or not new cars, but new to people, cars that are purchased are EVs. Over 25%. Wow. And there's only a handful of places in the entire state. When I say handful, I'm aware of 2.
Wow.
in the whole state
Okay.
that allow you to test drive a bunch of EVs and specialize in it. And actually, one of them doesn't even specialize in it. They just have a
It's
really
kind of their
good
side
selection.
gig.
Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of gas cars on this side and a
Yeah.
whole bunch of EVs on this side.
Okay.
And so, yeah, the opportunity is I think.
Did we just drive past your multi-million-dollar cabin in Huntsville?
No, we did not.
Oh, okay.
Not.
I was going to say, we could go chill there
right?
if you want.
We could. I think
It's totally up to you.
we'd surprise somebody if we did that. So, someday.
Okay, so building websites.
Yep.
What was the name of that company?
Net Ventures.
Net Ventures.
Yeah, sold that to a small, kind of a local, publicly traded internet company. Oh, is that guy? Yeah. We almost got a little more than we bargained for there. So I need to put
We
the
got a
autopilot
Defender in the lap almost.
Yes.
All right.
We'll put the autopilot on. I saved us from getting in a bad wreck the other day. So sold that, again, a little double. Started building my first app. And so the app was one of the very first third-party apps for Twitter.
Okay.
And so I was a very early user of Twitter. Their API was wide open. Built something that was actually way ahead of its time. Twitter's, back in those days, geolocation was turned on for every tweet. You couldn't turn it off.
Wow.
And it would say, basically, your longitude and latitude.
Okay.
And so...
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
I was really, really early user of Twitter too, because a friend of mine was maybe employee 15 or,
Oh, wow.
or something like that. So I heard about it
Wow.
early and started playing around with it. And at first I was so skeptical. I'm like, well, I don't know what this is going to do.
Yeah.
It was more of a gimmick.
Yep.
I definitely did not predict what it would become.
Yeah.
But it was fun playing with it in the early days.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's still a first place I go for breaking news.
Yeah.
No question. I don't really tweet anymore, but...
So you made like a tweet deck kind of
it
a
was actually really,
app
like I said, I
platform?
still... they closed the loop, and I, kind of saw that coming. But while the loop was open, basically, what it would do is it would search Twitter in real time for keywords that the customer would put in. So, like, let's say, various car repair terms.
Mhm.
In your car repair shop, you'd put all those terms in, and it would search for them. And when somebody would tweet something that was related to that, you'd get a real-time notification. So if somebody was
As a
talking-
store owner or something,
Yeah,
like,
you
okay,
could
this
hit 'em up
person
and say, "Hey, I
is
saw
close to you and is talking about your stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, that's
So it would deliver these real-time leads.
nice.
And like I said, that was pretty ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And so the people that got it, and it grew really fast. In fact, good old TechCrunch, which was the place to be back in the day,
Yeah.
they wrote an article and said, these are the top 5 apps or businesses in the world that Twitter should acquire. And it was called TwitJump.
And you were
TwitJump was
there?
one of them.
Okay.
Yeah. So it started getting media attention,
Nice.
everything else. And so was growing that.
Too bad Facebook didn't exist yet,
Yeah.
or was it just getting
I
going?
don't even know. I don't
So you didn't get bought for $1 billion?
No.
Okay.
Actually, what happened, I had some opportunities to sell it, and ended up taking kind of a unique route that was awesome. Ended up selling it to what was then called Funding Universe.
I remember
Brock
that
Blake,
too. Yeah.
and who's one of my close friends.
Yeah.
Somebody I really love. And they acquired that and then rolled it in to what we relaunched as Lendio.
Okay.
And so I got equity and some cash, some equity. I still have some equity in Lendio. I'm not very much, but
Okay. So that's how you ended up becoming part of Lendio.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So they acquired it, some cash, some stock.
Well, Lendio is so different from that.
Yes.
So was Lendio doing that kind of stuff in the beginning?
Well, we were still called Funding Universe, and
Okay.
it's crazy how that went down. So Funding Universe was really, we were selling small business packages. And so it wasn't just loans and venture financing and investors. It was also business plans and websites
Okay.
and social media stuff.
Everything you need to
Yep.
launch your business, including funding.
Yep.
Okay.
And so that's where TwitJump came in. It's like, hey, wait, you want to take advantage of social media? We've got this tool that we've built that, will do that for you and help you grow your business.
Cool.
And so this is where self-driving gets kind of cool. Have you been in one of these or anything like a canyon?
I have not been behind the wheel in a self-driving mode, no.
Oh, really? Yeah. So this is kind of fun because it zigs and zags.
Nice.
So when we started growing that business, it got to the point where, the Inc. 500, which is the 5-year previous period of the fastest growing privately held companies. And so we were the number one fastest growing privately held company in Utah.
Wow.
In any category. So and we were number 34 in America.
Oh, that's cool.
And so we were growing, as you can imagine, really, really fast. And then we blew it up by changing it over to Lendio, which is much more of what, even today, they're still different.
Yeah.
Software infrastructure. But we got rid of a lot of the revenue producing products, including ultimately.
Narrowed it down to kind of this one thing.
And torpedoed our revenue.
Wow.
And but it was part of a bigger plan. Knew we were going to.
Yeah.
And so then went through this scary, exciting roller coaster of launching that and growing that, and then that's when the Weber State thing happened. So we can talk next about that if you want.
Yeah. So how long were you with Lendio? Funding Universe / Lendio?
Yeah, I mean, at least a couple of years.
Okay.
I would think.
I think that's when we first met.
I think so.
It might have been Funding Universe at the time. In fact, I think one of my first startups, I might have applied or done something with Funding Universe.
Did maybe one of the pitch events or something?
Yeah, I remember something about that, and I remember meeting you. I remember meeting Brock. So that might have been 2007 or 8. Does that sound right?
Yeah. So
or
2009. 12 years. So, and I went from Lendio straight to Weber State.
Okay.
So 12 years ago. So 2011.
Okay, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's when I left.
Okay, so you're working with Lendio. You were part of okay, guys, we're going to blow up a lot of these revenue streams intentionally. Crazy. We're going to crater this.
Yep.
But it appears to have worked out.
We thought we reached our peak.
Okay.
That under that business model, that was as big as it was going to get. Yes, we were number 1 this, number 34 that, but
if you go all in and focus on business loans and providing capital, connecting banks with young businesses, there's
all business
sky's the limit.
Yeah, and also infrastructure and software and just a lot of other ways to turn into a much larger business, which they've done in the last 12 years since I left. That's a very large, very awesome business now. So
Brock's they're still doing well.
Yeah, they are just impressive how long they've been at it.
Yeah,
and they deserve all the success they've had.
I do remember there is a fun memory that I have of that is you, like you said, longtime family, big time Ute fans.
Yes,
Brock. Yeah. Hardcore BYU fan.
Hardcore as
I think he played BYU soccer.
Yeah.
Because I played soccer there too, for 1 year. So I remember he played soccer.
Yep.
So you guys would have these annual kind of punk each other with a massive U of U thing or a big BYU thing. Tell me one of those stories.
Yeah. So even though I didn't love my educational experience at the U, I remember one of the few connections that I had to Utah and stuff is, the Utah BYU game would usually be on TV.
Yeah.
And so we would watch that and cheer, wildly for the U, where my dad graduated from. And so I've always been a big fan of their sports.
Yeah.
And so there were two things. There were multiple things, but I'll tell you two. One of them was I remember this right, all the things I did. With Brock's office, I believe we put in red carpet, red paint.
You
covered the
put in new carpet?
Yeah, red. Put in red. Covered the furniture with red.
So you had to get a crew, sneak in there in the middle of the night,
even down to the
tear out the carpet, and
red markers for the whiteboard and red candy in the candy dish, and then filled it with balloons.
That is awesome. The whole office, floor to ceiling.
Yep. Well, almost probably 6 feet up. So that was one, and then. 1 year.
Did he leave the red carpet in, or
he just whatever he did? He was out of there by the end of the day. So I can't remember. I think we did carpet, but maybe not. There's video of it. I know
removable carpet tiles.
Yeah, something. So and then 1 year he wrapped my car with the giant BYU logo on the hood, and then I'm sure you remember Max Hall. Back on the trunk it said "Honk if you love Max Hall," and then giant BYU logos on the doors. all this
That
stuff.
is
So yeah,
amazing.
we had, it was an epic thing
That is
that we did.
amazing.
That was great for the culture and a lot of fun. So yeah, it was.
I remember seeing some of those on like LinkedIn or other,
Yep.
early social kind of stuff.
Yep.
Whatever
Yeah.
the battle royale back and
Yes.
forth between you
Yeah.
guys. That's
Yep.
hilarious.
It was fun. Good times.
Okay, so what prompted you to leave Lendio?
So Weber State reached out to me. So I got my MBA there. I told you about that several years before, and I'd been in contact with them. I think I had adjunct one semester or something.
Wait, so what part? When was the timing of your MBA?
I think 2005.
So that was after food franchises.
In the middle of food
In the middle.
franchises. Yeah.
And what prompted you to do it?
So this is interesting. I think I was the only self-employed person in the program,
Okay.
and I was the only person that was paying for it myself.
Okay.
They all were getting paid for by their employers or at Hill Air Force Base or whatever.
Okay.
So I was a very unique student in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I want to learn. An MBA sounds cool, smart, whatever. I'm going to give it a try. I don't know, and I'm just driven to.
I want to do better than I did before.
Yeah, I'm just driven to
Okay.
accomplish stuff or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And so I went when I was running the pizza chain, and
Because an argument could be made that you had already learned quite a bit of real world application and had enough success that, like, why do you need an MBA?
yeah, I mean,
You don't really have to anything to prove to
everybody
anybody
was there
else.
to get a promotion,
Yeah.
basically, or be able to.
A lot of that was like laddering up their career, but
Yep.
you kind of surpassed that in a sense.
I mean, I wouldn't say that as much as, I just really thought I want to see what it's like. I don't know. I want to see what they got,
Yeah.
And I would say I learned a lot. I really did. And that's what became my love for Weber State. I had great professors that really got to know me. And it helps that the categories and the subjects and stuff were things I was really interested in and doing. And so I just had a great experience. I had great classmates. I still talk to one of my classmates yesterday.
So I know you're a professor, and so you've got to say certain stuff. But I also know you well enough to know. Yeah, I was going to say, it's like you'll say whatever you'll say the truth. You'll say whatever you need to say. So I'm curious, like, have you then, and it sounds like you did, and have found value in that, like, traditional education in addition to your real world, like, street education?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But with that, I will say, not everyone should go to college. In fact, there are many people who should not go to college.
Okay.
And so,
How do you make that recommendation or distinction?
I mean, I don't know for me if there's a clear, like, oh, check these boxes and you should go, check these boxes and you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I think college can be good for everyone if they approach it the right way. But the reality is I'm not naive enough to think that that'll be the case. I also think college can be for everyone if they don't go into debt to do it. And so, if everybody could go to Weber State and graduate with almost no debt or none, very, very little, and learn from professors that have been out in the real world doing it, and, take classes learning things that are current and have fun, I think it's a great stop for most people. But that doesn't describe the majority or I wouldn't say the majority. That doesn't describe a lot of college opportunities. So
Have you ever told a student, get out of here, this isn't for you?
yeah, I have.
Okay.
And not get out of here, but have you thought
Like,
about
you
these
should
other options?
reconsider.
Yeah, have you thought about
Okay.
I will say this though, there's only one time that jumped in my head, and now that I think about it, there might have been a second in 12 years. I think there was, but I teach in the sales program.
Mm-hmm.
And so the sales program, I think, is universally helpful
Yeah, that's true.
to just about everyone.
Kind of apply sales skills no matter what you do.
Yeah, and like I said, my fellow professors they get it, they've done it. Our classes are small, they care about the students, and so I have a hard time. Like I said, 2 times in 12 years have I said that.
Okay.
And so but that's our department.
Mhm.
I'm not sure I can say that same thing for anybody that I've. In fact, I know there's, quite a few more examples of kids that I may have talked to that are in other programs or other schools, or I know them in a different capacity in my life, where I'm not telling them not to, because I don't presume to know their lives and stuff well enough, but where I'm telling them, hey, have you considered these alternatives?
Okay. So if a young entrepreneur comes to you and says, hey, I'm thinking about getting an MBA, how do you approach giving them advice?
Have had that conversation many times, actually. I start by asking them some questions. Well, why? What is it what's the goal? Do you want to work in a career where a degree is required, which there's still many there are? What kinds of things do you think you're going to learn? Is it for the network? Do you just love education so much that you just thrive in that environment and you think you need some more of it? Tell me about where, like what kind of cost is this financial going to be? How are you going to pay for it? And stuff like that. So I need to get all those answers to questions first. And once I ask them, the majority of them that are asking, my recommendation is I don't think you should do it. If you're talking about entrepreneurs that have already finished their bachelor's degree, that are thinking about an MBA, I'm just like, even though I did it, but most of the time their reasons aren't quite the same as what my reasons were. And so most of the time I say, I don't know. I don't think that's probably, the times that I tell them that it is worth it. If sometimes they want to have a backup, I want to, or they feel like that they just need to have as much education as they can. It's just personal. I just want to do it. And who am I to tell them, don't do something that you feel is really important to do. But sometimes they're like, well, I want to get into Harvard. And I say, well, then you're doing it for the network. And that's, if you can get in, great. Then you probably should do it. I mean, if I could have gotten into Harvard, if I could still get into, I don't think I could to this day, then I probably would. And so there's a lot of it depends in that answer.
Right. So Lendio, Weber State calls you up, says we're looking for professors. Do you want to teach?
It's a great story, I think.
Okay.
So the dean of the business school, who's one of my great mentors to this day, one of the most, if I had to phone a friend on, remember what was the So I Want to Be a Millionaire? And you gave me you can call anyone in the world that I'd call him.
Okay.
I mean, this is one of the most well-read, smartest, knows more about anything that I've ever met in my whole life.
Could give Ken Jennings a run for his money. Is that the right name, Ken Jennings?
Yeah, the Jeopardy guy. Incredibly brilliant. That word's overused, but just IQ off the chart. But very mild-mannered, soft-spoken. A lot of times I'll ask him a question. It'll be 30 seconds of silence before he answers.
He's very thoughtful before he...
Almost too much so where you're like, hello, did you hear me? and if you don't know him, people are like, what's going on? Did he hear my question? So he became the provost. And he was the one that ultimately, had asked me to be am I supposed to? No. I think there's one coming this way. Had asked me to be the student speaker and whatnot. And so we connected. And the president of the university, I also got a chance to meet, and Ann Milner, who's I just talked to 2 days ago. She's now a senator. They said, hey, come up, go to lunch, and I honestly thought they were going to maybe ask me for like a donation or something. And
those are the calls I get.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. And
nobody wants to be teaching their kids anything. They just would like some donations.
Yep. And I was fine. I was like, great. I just want to meet with them. And they're talking about how they've got this program is called U-Star, and they want to start an entrepreneurship program and all this stuff. And I remember very vividly, I tell this story often, I'm sitting there going, I bet they're going to ask me about Jenny. Like, what do you think about Jenny? You think she would be good? Like, who are they going to ask me about? And so my mind, and then they said, and we're wondering if you'd like to come do it. And I said, I was like, what?
Kind of blindsided?
No, completely blindsided. Okay. And here I am at Lendio, we're doing all these cool things. We had, it was a non-obvious thing, right? I certainly wasn't looking for it. And so it took me a couple weeks to, think about it with my wife, and obviously I decided to do it. And Brock and Levi and Trent and all Rich and Brett and all these people that I was working with, they were super kind, and we're like, dude, that's a pretty special opportunity. And I weighed 75 pounds more then than I do now, or 65, and high blood pressure. And I mean, I am not exaggerating when I say I worked probably 100 hours a week for almost 2 decades.
Wow.
I had no life.
Yeah.
I was a really mediocre.
Somehow
at
you
best.
got married in the middle there, so we'll circle back.
No,
We'll
but
circle back to
listen,
that.
man, I was a very mediocre at best father and husband.
Okay.
Very, very mediocre. It's my only regret in my life.
Okay.
Really, everything else I think I learned from, but that one caused damage to others.
I want to circle back. That's the
Yeah.
that's the tears part of the brand, sweat and tears.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So I came over and got to do some really cool things. In fact, I can drive you by one of them. Have you ever been to Weber State downtown, Startup Ogden? Seen that building? Pretty rad. We'll drive by it real quick.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I know that there's some cool stuff right by where like that Limitless Flight, and then there's the surf place and some cool stuff like that.
It's kitty corner to that. We don't
Okay.
need to, and I can tell that story briefly, but got to, do some really cool. So we bought this building downtown and built a old building, totally we didn't remodel it, brought back to life all the old brick and wood, and it's this radical industrial building, and turned it into Startup Ogden with a bookstore downstairs that have all this cool merch, and just it's honestly one of the coolest buildings in town. Just
Nice.
And it's the only that I'm aware of startup kind of accelerator, whatever you want to call it, in Utah, and one of the few around the country. It's totally self-sustaining. It's profitable. And so it doesn't require any outside funding.
That's great.
And so
That's really cool.
we did something cool there,
Yeah.
that produces startups and places to work for this area. And so I got to do that. Got to, the Weber State didn't have a technology commercialization office. So if professors come up with some invention, there was no way for the university to help them commercialize that.
Did you suggest that?
I started it.
Okay.
We built one.
Nice.
And now it's 12 years later, it's rocking and has great leadership, and they commercialize stuff and do a lot of great things.
That's really cool.
I got to do some projects, a lot of stuff like that. They actually hired me. My title was vice provost, which in academia is a big deal. And so it got me into
pretty big
rooms.
deal.
Well,
Office full of leather-bound books that smells of rich mahogany.
That's my office right up there.
Nice.
It's a big deal in academia. I didn't mean to make it sound like I was a big deal, but we could launch it from this light one more time if you want.
I might black out. So.
I'll hit it just a little bit. We won't knock over the microphones. But
we barely held on. In fact, this whole time I've been wondering, is the video recording still, or when it fell down, did we?
We'll just make another.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. We'll have to redo this whole conversation.
Well practiced. We'll know exactly what to ask next. They really gave me, Ann and Mike really gave me a lot of leash.
Yeah.
They really, and I used it.
Yeah.
So one of the funny stories, they give you a P card, a purchasing card, and I was not from the world where you have to report everything, and they were basically like, we're going to take it away from you if you don't. So for
Slow your roll.
Well, there wasn't so much. No, it wasn't that. Like you can't pay sales tax.
Okay.
And so I would forget. So I'd have to go back and get a credit and get the receipts and do all this stuff. And just stuff that like that. But it was a wonderful experience. But I started teaching a little more, and what I started learning is if I really I wanted to get out of the bureaucracy. I'd done everything I felt like I could do, as far as the entrepreneur and the downtown and and I'm like, and to be clear, when they hired me, I said, hey, I still am going to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And my agreement with them always has been, I won't start anything that's, an online university, something competitive, and I won't hire current students. Mm-hmm. And that's never been an issue. But I just said, I'm not retiring from entrepreneurship permanently.
Yeah.
And so I thought about just going back out and starting a business or buying a business or something.
There's a Jamba. We're driving by a Jamba.
Right. We did it. So it was, I picked the location,
right,
it was
down
here, and then they moved a couple of years ago. And so...
just inching closer to the campus?
Yeah, it's a bit, and they were able to buy that property. We were just renting a little, I'll show you the little strip mall up here.
Okay.
And so I got to teach on occasion, and I really, truly loved it. Mm-hmm. I just thought this would be so cool to do more regularly.
Was that in sales or
no, it was
entrepreneurship,
in the business school.
just general
business? Yeah, it was
business?
in the business school.
Okay.
And I didn't love that, though, the being in the business school. They were antiquated. They were behind. And I got into some pretty good arguments with some of the tenured older professors. I'll never forget this one. That was in that. It was right there where Golden Jade is, or Thai Palm Kitchen. That's where it was.
Oh, nice.
I said, in the marketing department, I said, we've got to have an internet marketing class. And they said, no, that belongs in the computer science department.
Wow.
And I said, internet marketing. And they said, no, it's a technical discipline. I said, this is what got me in trouble. So when's the last time you looked at a business's P&L? Because the single largest line item on most of their expense side for marketing is digital and internet. And you're crazy. And that didn't go over too well. And so they're getting just ahead a little bit. Mike, my mentor, said, you should get a PhD, Alex. And I remember telling my wife, she likes to tell this story, that on the stage after my MBA thing, I said, I'm going to get a PhD someday. And my wife knows me well enough. She's like, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Because I get excited about stuff,
Yeah.
And same thing with him.
Why did he recommend that?
Because he saw how much I loved teaching and thought I was pretty good at it. And what I learned was what he already knew, that to really be accepted.
I was going to say, like, maybe I'm naive. Like, do you have to have a PhD to?
So in the department, in the professional sales department, they say yes.
Okay.
Most do.
Okay.
Most require it. If you want to be a legitimate, tenure track, which it didn't matter to me. Tenure didn't matter to me. Being accepted and being, hey, you can do that. Well, so can I. Kind of that chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And so I apply. It's interesting how the experience changed. I didn't want to uproot my family and go move somewhere and do a PhD, which is what most people do.
Mm-hmm.
There were some really, really, it was important to me that I did a really legitimate program.
Mm-hmm.
No offense, but I didn't want to get a PhD from the University of Phoenix or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I believe it was Pepperdine, Gonzaga, and Oklahoma State, tier 1 institutions, super legit. They had these PhD programs that were the real deal, no asterisks next to the name. And you could commute, you could fly in and attend class.
Okay.
And I believe I got into all 3 of them, which is funny because I barely got in by the skin of my teeth to Weber. And I chose Oklahoma State because they were the best one. And I commuted to Oklahoma State. I mean, I like to say every month for 3.5 years. It was a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there, and when we were there, this is insane to me. We would be there, and if we'd show up Thursday night, we'd be there, Friday morning at 8 a.m. They'd serve us breakfast. We'd have class until lunch in this auditorium. They'd serve us lunch. We'd have class in this auditorium. They'd serve us dinner. We'd go home. We'd do it again Saturday.
Yeah.
And the professors would just come to us.
Mm-hmm.
So it was literally like an entire day of classes. And the first year was actually 3 days a week.
Wow.
And it was intense. And I hated it. I hated it.
Yeah.
I didn't like the subject matter. I wasn't good at it. I had to get tutors. And I mean this sincerely, not false humility. I was the dumbest guy in my class. and I mean, these brainiacs from all over the country were flying in and just eating it up, just excelling. And here am I just holding on for dear life. And so, but there's a
I have a hard time believing it, but I will take
It's
your
the
word
truth.
for
I
it.
swear to you.
Okay.
I swear to you.
All right.
I mean, I think we had 3 or 4 or 5 PhD level statistics classes.
Wow.
I spent a fortune on the tutor. Where was ChatGPT when I needed it? And so I didn't, to this day, I still I have a hard time getting my head around that stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but the story is I didn't quit. I didn't give up. I think something like 30 or 40% of my class dropped out. And statistically, you can fact check this, but there's a big number. They actually have a term for it. It's called ABD, all but dissertation. People take their classes and they don't finish their PhD. There's a huge percentage of people out there floating around that are ABD.
Okay.
And so just an unwillingness to quit. And I was the first person in my graduating class to get tenure.
Wow.
And so, and again, not pat myself on the back, but I am saying that hustle.
It wasn't because you were the smartest one or naturally gifted.
Nope.
You had to really work for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And fortunate too that I was at Weber State, who completely supported me, encouraged me to do it.
Yeah.
And so a job opened in the professional sales department, and my wife actually has a degree from that program, so I was very familiar with it, and one of my best friends.
Professional Sales Department at Oklahoma State?
At Weber State.
At Weber State.
Yeah, we have the oldest
Okay.
sales program in America, 50 years.
Okay.
People that have started copying it years ago.
So this was after you finished the PhD program?
No, I was in it,
Okay.
and I was getting close to finishing.
And then this opening
and they
comes
had an
up.
opening, and I applied for my first job in probably since I was a bagger.
Okay.
I applied for a job.
And the sales track at Weber State was not in the business school?
No,
Okay.
and here's what appealed to me about that. They did the same thing to sales that they did to internet marketing. They gave it no respect. They said it's not a business discipline, and just totally disrespected it.
Wow.
And looked down on it. And so they said, well, we need to find a home. Let's call it. It was called technical sales. And it went to the College of Engineering and Applied Science. They called it an applied science, so it would have a home.
Okay.
And now I have a lot of good friends in the business school now, and have for years.
Yeah.
Multiple deans that I've loved. So this isn't not meant. Those guys I was talking to, they're probably dead by now. They were just at the end of their careers,
Yeah.
But they'd kill to have us back.
Wow.
We're one of the most successful programs in the university. We're high graduation rates we're growing when others are declining, and so it's the tables turn pretty dramatically.
How the turntables have turned.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, but no, we're probably I think there's one other, but yeah, you'll have a very hard time finding a sales program that's not in a business school in America.
Yeah.
So I applied, and it was very stressful. Because it's a rigorous process. They get applicants from all over the world, I think. Getting a tenure track professor job is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And you have to do a presentation in front of all of them and all this stuff. And obviously I got the job, but my getting kind of transitioned over to the real track was contingent on me finishing my PhD. And so I was close, but I didn't have it yet.
Okay.
And so anyway, I finished it and have been teaching for about, I've been there for 12 years. I've been at Weber State for 12 years. I think I've been teaching for like 7.
Wow.
So yeah, something like that.
So the first 5 were kind of doing some of these special projects, like the Startup Ogden, like all these things supported by the university.
Yep.
And then that professional sales track, like professorship, kind of opened, and you got the gig, and you've been doing that for like 7 years.
You got it.
And you said you were going to do entrepreneur stuff all along the way. Did you do other entrepreneurial things on the side during that period?
I invested in a couple that are doing. I mean, my angel investing was very small, but I'm batting 1,000. They're
nice.
2 that are doing.
Congrats, that's pretty good.
They haven't exited, but they're both very, very profitable and very large. And,
I am not batting 1,000.
Yeah, well, I got. What it was? It was 2 people that I knew really well.
Okay.
And had worked with them closely, and just bet on the jockey, not the horse.
Yeah.
Right? That whole thing.
Yeah.
And then I had small pieces of stuff, but nothing really caught my eye. And then I was talking to somebody that I knew from my Weber State life that had partnered up with a couple people, and they had started a big data dashboard analytics company, SaaS business, in the travel and tourism industry. And they were doing 6 figures annually of recurring revenue, so a nice little business, but they wanted to grow it. And so I took over as CEO, and
what was the name of that one?
It was called C-Source at the time, but now it's called Datafy.
Okay.
We rebranded it just a few months after I was there.
Okay.
And my guest speaker this morning is the CEO that I love so much. She's an amazing story in and of herself. But we grew that business really dramatically with no funding. It was very profitable. No, like I said, no investors or funding or anything. Took that from a 6-figure business to an 8-figure business in terms of ARR.
Nice.
And built a really strong, enduring company. And and so I was teaching and doing that. And then with my co-founder and business partner that we'd owned some gyms together, so I did own a small share in some gyms during that time. We got this itch to start EV cars. So EV Auto is a pivot out of EV cars. It wasn't to start a car dealership.
Okay.
And so evcars.com, we own EV cars and EV trucks and a bunch of good domains, was designed to be a marketplace for other people to buy and sell electric vehicles.
Okay.
Because my co-founder said to me, it really sucks to buy an electric vehicle. And I was like, it does. It sucks.
But the initial idea was just connecting people online.
Marketplace.
Okay.
Yeah, marketplace. And so started building that out, and as part of that process, basically every business I'd been involved in, I was either the customer or pretty deeply connected to the customer.
Yeah.
And the EV Cars business model was like KSL. So the paying customer is the car dealer.
Mm-hmm.
So free to private sellers, car dealers pay a subscription fee.
Okay.
Well, I'd never been a car dealer. So my same partner had an old car dealer license that we dusted off. And I bought a car at a car auction. I bought a Tesla. And I listed it on KSL. And you know, we met the criteria because we had a building and a sign, and you know, because there's rules associated with having a car dealership.
Yeah, I actually looked into getting a dealer license at one point. So I know there's like, you have to have a lot with a certain square footage.
Yep.
You have to have a sign.
Exactly.
There's a couple of those basic things. Yeah.
Yep. And it's designed to protect the exchange, and I get it, it's smart.
Yeah.
And so, but we were like the tiniest you could possibly be. And so building EV Cars marketplace, buying a car, selling it.
Yeah.
Then bought another car and sold it. And then bought another car and sold it. And then bought 2 cars and sold them. And did that, again, no outside funding, you know, no debt, just frugal. And pretty soon it was like buying 5 cars and 8 cars. and all of a sudden it hit us about 2 years ago. We've got a business that just did 8 figures. It's really profitable. What are we doing? Why are we disrespecting this business? You know, the marketplace is still great and we can still pursue that, but we should be car dealers.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's where EV Auto was born, and rented a dumpy little place by my house that I can get you a picture of. Actually, I'll drive you by it. It's right here.
We'll do the drive-by.
Yeah, and started like really putting some weight behind being and it was originally called Volt Motors, and you know, the story of getting EVauto.com is a story. I mean, it was not for sale.
Okay.
And the seller did not want to be known.
Okay.
And so I can tell you that story. I don't know how much time we've got left, but that story is another kind of, you know, knock on doors till you get the answer kind of a theme there. And, and our current location is that same theme. That property was not for sale.
Okay.
It was not for sale.
Just hustle.
Just talk the guy into selling it to me. Okay. So anyway, started really thinking about this car dealership concept, and have, you know, grown that and designed the look and the feel and the vibe and the logo and the brand and the culture and the experience and everything to be something that if we put one in Austin, Texas tomorrow, it would fit right in. Yeah. And it would feel like it belongs. And
it's definitely been cool to kind of watch you build in public. I think I remember Volt.
Yeah.
But you've definitely been more vocal, more open, and shared a lot more content as you started building EV Auto. Right?
Yeah. And that's on purpose.
Yeah.
Trying to...
it's a brand that you're like, okay, I can really lean into this brand.
Yeah, and I think people don't like buying cars from car dealers. And so I wanted to put a face and a name and make it a more human type of a thing. And, you know, obviously that had to be me. It's interesting how my ego and my mental health and where I was at in my life viewed that very differently now than it would have even 4 or 5 years ago. I was reticent to do it. Didn't want the extra attention, and you're like, dude, look at your car wrapped, and you're on social every day.
Yeah.
But for me, it's all about building the car dealership.
Yeah.
And so it's a totally different frame of mind.
Yeah, you're not just trying to draw attention to yourself. You're building a brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't have been the case probably 5 years ago.
Okay.
And so it's been a change there. So yeah, we went all in, and so it'll be 4 years in December that we started, which I think a lot of people kind of feel like, you know, we just started in July.
Yeah, because we were the grand opening of the new location, but you've been kind of silently building this thing a little bit for a while before that.
Yeah, just slowly growing, and we've got some cool things in the works. We're working on our second location. And
where is that going to be? Can you say?
Can't say.
Oh, okay.
But it's really good. It's even better than our current location.
Nice. Okay.
And just not raising money still. No.
So you have one business partner?
Yeah.
And then you guys own 100%.
Well, that's not true. We brought on our Tyler, who's our general manager and our operating partner.
Okay.
And
gave him a slice of the pie.
He's got the opportunity to own some of it. Yeah. Okay. So, and we will do that with every location. Okay. We will, have our person that's running it will have ownership.
Okay.
And so, yeah, but it's my, I teach. So my schedule, I teach on Monday and Wednesday for 2 hours on Monday and 2 hours on Wednesday. And then pretty much every minute outside of that, other than grading and office hours, I'm at the dealership selling cars. So, and trying to grow that business.
Nice. Okay. At some point in this whole journey, you got married.
Yeah.
Where did you find 5 minutes to date and court and marry someone? Yeah. And let's talk about how awesome your wife probably is, that she kind of fit into your craziness.
Yep. So I didn't have a social life. I never had a girlfriend. I didn't have the patience for a lot of that stuff. And, but when I met my wife, man, I was like, I never told anybody I loved him. I mean, I just had not had relationships.
Yeah.
And so, and part of that, I think moving around a lot, kind of.
So at what point in your entrepreneurial journey did you guys meet?
Yeah. So, and there's a, you're going to sense a theme. So I was volunteering at where I went to high school.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
It's so true. Look, this is framed in our house, what I'm about to tell you. So I had volunteered to help coach at where I went to high school. And I was with the team down in St. George, and she was down there for work. Mm-hmm. And since I volunteered, I didn't have to play by the rules, and so I took all my kids that wanted to go to church. Mm-hmm. What are they gonna do? Fire me, right? So we went, and I saw her drive up in this car, her and another girl, and I couldn't find them. And so I wrote
to the church in St. George.
Yeah, it was crowded. It was like a farewell or something, an LDS church
for
a missionary to go on a mission. And so I saw the car though, so I got my business card and I wrote on the back of it. And I said, "Hey, I saw you. I think you saw me. I'd love to meet you," and put my phone number.
Okay.
And that's that card is framed with our.
You have it. She kept it.
She kept
That's so cool.
And so her friend actually called me, not her.
Okay.
And she's like,
friend's looking out for her?
No, they didn't know which one I was looking at. So the friend says,
the friend thought it was.
Dude, it's a great story. So the friend calls me. He's like, "Yeah, this is where we're staying.
That is classic.
And I'm like, "Okay, I come over." And my now wife answers the door in like sweats and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And she's not at all. And her friend had gotten all ready.
And you're like, "No, it was you."
I know immediately. I'm like, and she
Did you say it? Like, how did you straighten that out?
No. So what happened is she was like, "Oh, hey, yeah." And so she was like gonna watch TV while this other girl hung out with me, and she's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna hang out with them." And so the three of us hung out that night, and then the next night I said, "Hey, do you want to hang out? But I just want to hang out with you." And not in front of her friend.
Yeah.
And you know what, dude? Her friend. I mean, dude, we'd only met for a few minutes. Her friend was heartbroken.
Okay.
And she got married to somebody
I
else.
mean, because I've kind of been in the middle of those, more than one. I have accidentally those scenarios, and it hasn't always ended well.
Yeah, it was.
But I'm glad. I'm glad that was chill. That was cool.
Yep. And she. So yeah, we dated, and
that's great.
I mean, I knew I loved her, and we dated for 6 months.
And she's like, "Well, I mean, you see me in sweats and a t-shirt, we're just starting to look real."
And she's been through a hell of a lot with me.
Okay.
And really, again, kind of trite. I think sometimes people say, "Oh, my wife's the better half, and she's, deserves a medal and all that stuff." And I don't think people don't mean it, but I think it gets overdone a little bit sometimes. Not in her case. She really has been through the ringer with me, and is just it's interesting. She's very different for me in that she doesn't have a person on this earth, I'm not exaggerating, that doesn't like her. I really don't think so.
Okay.
I can't think of anybody.
Okay, so wait, this was after you had started teaching?
No, I met her when I was doing the restaurant franchising.
Okay, still in the restaurant
franchising. So I was in my late 20s.
Okay.
Late 20s.
Okay.
And again, in Utah, that's you're an old maid if you get married in your late 20s, right? All my friends were married and had kids and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, we got married. I can't remember. I was 28, 29, something like that. Yeah, we've been married 22 years.
All right. So she has been with you through some of this entrepreneurial craziness stuff. And part of this, I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs about what did your support group look like and who are these critical people in your life as mentors, friends, supporters. It sounds like Mike, the dean, was super instrumental, big mentor, saw opportunities that he wanted to plug you into And then your wife has been really instrumental in this and being a support, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think because of my behavior and stuff and history, there's people that I'm really close with that we're forever bonded.
Mm-hmm.
Brock Blake is one of them, and
in spite of the fact that he's a Cougar fan.
yeah, that's right. But my
Hat
wife
tip to Brock. Brock, I got
Totally.
mad respect for Brock
Yeah,
too.
yeah, he's the real deal. And there's others, but my wife is just so far and above. Like, I didn't have a lot of people that I made it easy for them to support me.
Yeah.
And so she was there through thick and thin, and made it possible for me to pursue these things with encouragement and love and support. And I've had great mentors that have helped me advance, but none of them were really there for the crap.
Mm-hmm.
And so they I mean, the hard stuff, some of my business partners, my current co-founder Logan, and we've been through some things together, and previous people that I've worked, Candy, the CEO that I mentioned this morning that runs Datafy,
Mm-hmm.
we've been through things, and she's a top fiver for me of best people I've ever worked with.
The Datafy is still a thing.
Oh, dude, they're crushing it.
And you have ownership?
Nope, sold out.
Okay.
Yep, sold out, and had a bit of a falling out with one of the partners that's not involved. Didn't, but it was timing couldn't have been better. EV Auto was just starting to take off.
Okay.
And so at the end of the day, I didn't lay awake at night dreaming of big data dashboards for travel and tourism. I thought about the new Rivian that was coming out.
Okay.
So it worked out great. And
Your passion, your heart was leading you into this EV Auto.
yeah. And Candy was absolutely deserving to be CEO.
Okay.
She's one of the most baller, dude. She's one of the most baller CEOs I've ever been around, and nobody knows about her. And they're going to have a huge exit someday, and then everybody's going to know about her.
Okay.
I'm telling you right now. So
She's flying under the radar right now.
Yep.
Do I need to get her on the podcast?
do. I think
Okay.
I think she spoke to my class this morning and blew them away.
Okay.
Just blew them away. And so, and her, the CTO and president, who's co-founder, one of my other close friends, the product that he built, so he's got an economics degree, but built a product, dude, that I would literally put him up against any CTO I've ever met ever. The dude is unbelievable.
Wow.
And the product and the technical talent. So anyway, you're going to hear all about them someday.
Okay.
But not until somebody buys them for a crazy amount of money.
$1 trillion.
So
Okay.
yeah, we're going to come up on Volt Motors.
The
And then it
original
was EV cars.
lot.
Yeah, right here. That building where it say alterations, that was it. So we had Teslas parked out front there, a broken sign. That was that where it says drum lessons, that said evcars.com.
Okay.
EV Auto didn't exist.
Okay.
So our rent there was $1,000 a month.
Wow.
So yeah, quite the, and we sold, I don't know, somewhere north of $10 million worth of Teslas out of that little hole.
Wow.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So talk to me about EV Auto. What was the story behind snatching this name?
Yeah, okay, yeah, the domain. So, EV Cars is the marketplace. Doesn't sound quite right for the dealership.
Mm-hmm.
And the marketplace we wanted to still keep, and we've got a really special, unique thing we're going to use that for, that we're relaunching it, that we could talk about another time. But the domain was not used. There was nothing there, but it wasn't for sale. And so I started hiring brokers to try and
track this
person,
down,
right? And they'd send offers and they'd go unopened, unlooked at, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started doing things like sending certified mail to various addresses from various names. And then I started
You didn't want to make it look like it was all from one person.
No, and then I started sending things like crumble cookies and stuff
Oh, nice.
to different addresses.
Okay.
And trying
So a bunch of people got some free crumbles for
Yes.
like, hey, I don't know, but like we'll take the cookies.
Exactly. And I'm just like, and I'm putting my message inside of all of them.
Yeah.
And just hoping that at some point it gets to somebody that's willing to listen. And every broker I had finally got to the point where they're like, look, dude, this isn't going to work. I'm sorry. I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah, just
this
give
person
up.
doesn't want to be found. They
Okay.
don't want to sell.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But I had one guy that kept saying, yeah, I'll keep, because they work on commission.
Yeah.
And so one day he gets a reply and he's like, I got the letter, the cookies or whatever, and I guess I'd make.
I've had 5 boxes of cookies. I'm starting to feel guilty. Okay,
Yep.
I'll finally
Yeah.
respond.
So just not quitting,
Okay.
just keeping, trying to be creative, and ended up, getting him to sell it for a not too crazy price, and so then we switched from went from Volt Motors to evcars.com to EV Auto, and I think EV Cars and EV Auto are the two best domains in the world for what we're doing personally. But so that was a kind of a fun way to get that domain name.
That was really cool. And again, there's definitely this pattern with you, but also with a lot of the other entrepreneurs. A big part of success, it feels like, has way less to do with their natural talents, abilities, and intelligence, especially with respect to the thing that they were going into. Like almost everybody's like, I didn't know anything about anything, and just kind of learned as I got into it. But the one pattern that seems to be really consistent is this courage and just persistence, like this ability and willingness to like ask, to knock on the door, to ask the question, to like just keep trying and not give up after like one no or two no's or whatever. Like you might have to ask 100 times and just keep going at it. And that seems like a very consistent theme with a lot of the startup founders that I've talked to, which is pretty cool.
That it might
almost everyone has said like, I didn't know anything about this thing. I'm definitely not the smartest person at this. And I get that all of them are humble, but they weren't like predisposed necessarily to be amazing at this thing. They just
wasn't like the
found a way to do it.
They grew up in or something.
Yeah, that's really cool.
My PhD dissertation, I attempted to figure out when it made sense for an entrepreneur to quit. Because you shouldn't persist through every idea startup that you have. And I was unsuccessful in figuring that out from a research perspective.
Yeah.
But the conclusion I came to, which is shared by a lot of folks, but also contested by a fair amount, but I'll tell you, I feel very passionate that it's true, is that the number one contributor to success, ahead of race, age, economic status, IQ, education, geography, you name it, anything that can be a potential leg up or leg down kind of a thing, that grit and perseverance overtakes all of those.
Is the thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that, because you can get through eventually, and sometimes it takes many, many years, pretty much any of those things. And, some people certainly have a lot more advantages than others. Mm-hmm. And I had two parents that loved me and, encouraged me. And I didn't grow up in a ghetto or some, scary place. And so I definitely had a ton of advantages, but I also didn't have a family business I grew up in and, a check waiting for me to go to, to do this or do that.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't begrudge anybody that does have those things, but the ones that have that willingness to be gritty, it doesn't really matter what your situation is.
Yeah, you can overcome a lot of the perceived disadvantages or real disadvantages, I guess, right?
Yep, eventually.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's true from my personal experience and a lot of the successful entrepreneurs that I've interviewed. That seems to be the theme that underlies all of this.
It's the old quote, I think it's Yogi Berra maybe, or somebody, it's hard to beat someone, there's Babe Ruth, I think it might be Babe Ruth. It's hard to beat someone that never quits.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean.
So maybe a good place to end up is, we talked about this, we referenced this a little bit. You said, if you have any regrets, it's that you were maybe not the best dad, not the best husband, in the context of you were just kind of a workaholic. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and not maybe, I wasn't.
Okay.
And I'm still working on it. I mean, it's always we're always trying to get better, and my journey to getting better is not complete.
How many kids do you have?
2 daughters.
2 daughters.
18 and 12.
Okay.
And I was so consumed by what was going on in my life that I forsake what was going on in their lives. And just selfishness is the best way I can describe it. Selfishness that comes from insecurities, inadequacies, just such an intense desire to compete and win and show people. And that still will always reside in me to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But I've hopefully figured out how to temper it to be more of a positive thing. But I just wasn't present. and wasn't doing things and making decisions that would be something that are going to help my family. And
So you said that you did this for about 2 decades, 20 years. During that time, were you justifying that level of commitment to work to the fact that, like, I'm doing this for my family? I'm working hard for my family? Was there that kind of self-justification or deception, or was there even this realization that, like, no, I'm going to prove people wrong. I'm going to be amazing. I'm going to get my face carved into the Utah Mount Rushmore. I'm going to be spoken of alongside the other great entrepreneurs. Like, was it that, or was it like, did you really feel like you were doing it for your family?
I mean, there was some of all of that, but the reality is my base was I want to provide for my family,
Mm-hmm.
but the stuff that was built on top of that ended up blocking your view of the base was all unhealthy things.
Does your wife ever try to call you out on it, or say, you don't need to work 60 hours to take care of us?
Not that way, but definitely, and rightfully so, was like, this ain't gonna work anymore, buddy. Like, you've got to figure some stuff out. And she was right and is right, and that was like 4 years ago, and it's been, the last 4 years have been infinitely better. And like I said, still progressing, still learning, but I can't go back in time, can't redo some of the stuff with not being around and things like that. And so it's hard because I'm doing a startup again.
Yeah.
But I'm present, and I'm available, and I'm still putting them first when I need to, and my motivation now is for them.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I'm my RPMs run as fast as anybody you'll meet, and I want to compete and win.
Yeah.
And that, wherever that comes from, is wherever that comes from. But like we were talking about with the social media stuff, it just is for a different reason. It doesn't fan the same flame, the unhealthy flame.
Yeah.
That it used.
It's not
to.
feeding your ego like it would have in the past.
Yep, that's right.
Have you talked to, and your daughters are still pretty young, but have you talked to them about those earlier years, and have you guys had like heart-to-heart talks about their perception of that, and how they've felt about that, and how they're currently processing that, or what kind of discussions have you had with them about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the nature of my relationship with my 18-year-old is different than my 12-year-old. And so there's been some of that, and there will be more of that as they grow up. But really, I think what I'm just tried to focus on is being sorry, right? And make sure that's sincere and understood. But that really is only the very beginning. And then after that's all about the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And just trying to really, and like I said, still far from perfect and evolving and growing, but trying to really make sure that those destructive behaviors don't ever happen again. And so I know they can tell a difference, and but it's a one day at a time. Like, I mean, I gotta maintain that difference today and tomorrow and the next day, so that they can
keep working at it.
Yeah, so they can know me in that way more than the other way.
Yeah.
And so it just takes time.
And it's been about 4 years, you say, since you've kind of had that awakening or that change of heart. Mm-hmm. So the good news is your oldest, who's 18, it wasn't too late to kind of still be in her life and be a part of her life. It wasn't like she was gone.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely have some work to still do for sure, but just love her more than ever, and get to see her doing amazing things, and just love spending time with her. And but I'm still earning all those privileges back, so to speak, and
Yeah.
so, but yeah, then my 12-year-old, obviously, a lot younger, and so just really enjoy being a part. My oldest moved away and goes to college back east and is just doing great back there, and so excited for her to come home for Christmas break.
What is she studying, and are either or both of them entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so she's studying criminology at George Mason University. They have an outstanding program.
Okay.
And she got into that as
She wants to be like FBI or CIA or
Yep,
something.
you got
Okay.
it, something like that. And she's got a really competitive job working at the police station.
Okay.
Because if you're in that program, working at the police station, and she's thriving. She lives on her own, and she's doing great, and she has a job and going to school full time. And I don't think that, no, I don't. She wants to, like I said, she wants to go down that path. So that's not entrepreneurial.
Mm-hmm.
My youngest, I don't know. I mean, both my kids are adopted, and so was born with a really incredible singing voice.
Okay.
And she works very hard at it. My wife spends a lot of time helping her.
You mentioned the adoption just so that nobody confused the fact that
Yes.
the singing genes did not come from you.
from me. Nope. That is exactly right. I say that all the time because it's like, and when I say she has a gift, I think that helps underscore that the gift didn't come from us.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
she gets some amazing opportunities. She got to travel Europe and perform in front of big crowds, and
Awesome.
she's gotten to perform in all these special venues.
Okay, so that's what she wants to do? She wants to...
I don't think so.
Be a professional singer?
I don't think so. She works really hard at it, and she
Okay.
gets amazing opportunities, but I don't think that's what she wants to do with her, professional or educational career. But we'll see. She's only 12.
All right.
So,
There's still a chance that you can get the entrepreneur bug
Yeah.
implanted in there.
Yes and no. I mean, I honestly, whatever, I just want them, and this, I just want them to do something they enjoy,
Yeah.
that can provide, the life and lifestyle that they want for them and their family. And that's not just, I don't mean that just financially, just what does daily life look like? And whatever that is, I don't even care.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna support and encourage that.
No, that's great. So where do you go from here? Let's circle back to what's the total world domination plan for EV Auto?
Well,
How do you get from one location in Bountiful, which is a cool location? In fact, we might need to get some wrap-up video of the location.
Yep.
How do you go from one cool location to the world's largest EV auto dealer?
Yeah, I mean, Bountiful it's a good location. It's a great location. But I think if we're successful, it'll probably be our smallest location. So this wasn't, we were able to buy this land and build this building, and that was important. But, my hope and my goal is to have 20 locations in the next 5 years that are all doing, $50 million a year each. That magically adds up to $1 billion in top line revenue. And to do that, we just have to continue being profitable. We've been profitable for 4 years straight, and we just have to keep doing that and reinvesting. We're not raising money. We're not looking for investors. We're not. We're trying to shovel everything we have into it. And like I said, if we can replicate what's going on here at a second location and even increase it, that adds to our ability to grow. And I've got
20 locations making $50 million a year. How many cars do you have to sell to make $50 million?
Yeah, I mean, it's a decent amount, but believe it or not, a $50 million a year car dealership is not that unusual.
It's not weird.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not. I mean, like I told you, we did north of 10 million out of that dump.
Yeah.
And so it's, and I say that lovingly. It's always going to have a special place.
Yeah.
In my heart. But I'll be 50 years old next year, and so this is definitely going to be my last startup that I lead. Not the last one I'll be a part of. And I'm just all in. I mean, all day now, burn the boats.
Yeah.
All in. And so for now, I'm focused on this location. How many cars did we sell today? And then I'm focused after that on this second location. How do we get that open? And
You're open 6 days a week?
6 days a week, Monday through Saturday.
How many cars are you selling a day right now?
I mean, a good month for us is 1 car a day.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I think our plan is to be more like 3 a day.
Yeah.
But we're way ahead of all of our goals and plans right now. And so if we're successful, you'll see these, in California and in Texas and in Florida and Arizona and Washington and Oregon and different places around the country that are more EV friendly or more interested in EVs, and our brand. Hopefully, if you want to try an electric vehicle, go down to EV Auto. They've got a bunch of cars, and there's no pressure, and they're super cool. Go check out their online reputation. They're like one of the coolest places you could ever buy a car. And so those combination of those two things, but I'm really very much like what's in front of me today. I know what the vision is out here, but it's like, what do we need to do today to make today successful, and how can we stack those on top of each other to get enough of them so that we can do that. So, we'll see.
That's so cool. Dude, this has been a blast.
Fun. We came back right. I mean, that worked out perfect.
It worked out good.
Came back right on time.
Good timing. We saw a couple of cool locations.
Yep.
Got chased by an ambulance for a second. Almost got T-boned by a Defender.
Yep.
And here we are back in the and we'll get some video of the location here to
sweet
like B-roll it or whatever.
Okay, man. Thanks for doing it.
Dude, you're the coolest. I'm so excited. And
I'm excited.
Our next car we're buying from you.
I'd love that. That'd be.
My wife wants an electric vehicle really bad.
That would be an honor.
As soon as I can. We got to get out of startup mode though, huh, Matthew?
Oh, I get it. Yeah. I get it. Yeah, trust me. Cars are not great investments. It's a smart move. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Thanks, dude. This episode was brought to you by Awesome, AWSM. Awesome is a platform that makes it super easy for companies to give ownership to the people who are creating value for them. It's like Venmo and Stripe, but for equity. Brands can easily share ownership with their agency partners, their influencers and brand ambassadors, their fans and customers, and their employees. Learn more at awesome.com, AWSM.com.